Welcome to Canada.
Yep.
Okay, we just got in the car, and I looked over. We've got like camera gear, batteries, cables, cords.
GoPro right there.
And I looked at Grimsmo's pocket, and I saw the SAGA. I have never touched one yet. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's a fidget tool.
Yep.
This is a newer one.
Yeah, I actually,
like the first
my mom came to visit for a couple weeks, so I actually gave her mine. So I was without for a couple days, and the guys in the shop were like, unacceptable. So they found enough parts to throw one together.
Best way to get a SAGA, be Grimsmo's mother. Oh my god. I was listening to a really good podcast, not the business of machining as somebody suggested, but 99% Invisible, and my iPhone Siri doesn't work anymore for audio commands. It's terrible. So I was trying to feverishly take notes safely on the road. Oh, black ink. I feel like you always see blue. I like that. Oh, that's really nice.
Cool.
That's really cool. I like it. Shall we go?
We shall. So how about we do a intro for the first video podcast?
Hi folks, welcome to the Video of Machining episode 1.
So normally we do an audio podcast, which is available on the internet. All the podcast platforms have it and all that. But for you guys watching on YouTube who might have never heard the podcast because you're YouTube guys, we're doing the first live episode. John came up to visit, so he's here for the next couple days, and right now we're on a road trip to CAMplete, so we figured, hey, let's film a podcast in the car. So I'm looking forward to this.
I think there's a noteworthy mention, though. The podcast isn't your typical podcast. We don't have an agenda. We don't have a goal. It's actually not even a podcast. It's a private or allegedly private conversation between me and John that occurred for quite some time before a good friend and someone who I will say has helped us both quite a bit, Rob Lockwood, said, hey, you guys really should record that conversation because I want to hear it and other people want to hear that because, you know, we love what we do, and John and I have both been on kind of like a 3-month high or 6-month high of doing well, but it's tough and there's tough things, and I like talking honestly and candidly about those questions and all that stuff. So it's the trials and tribulations of being a manufacturing entrepreneur.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've done 75 weekly episodes, which is a year and a half of actually recording, plus at least, we can't even remember, but at least 6 months before that of every Friday morning, let's get together at 7 a.m., do a video chat, and just go over how each other's business lives are going, and, you know, be our little accountability buddies and run things by and ideas and things like that. And it's been so grounding and helpful, and it's absolutely strengthened our friendship. I mean, I don't even think we were that close when we started out. We just knew, you know, we knew a lot of each other, and then we're like, yeah, let's do this.
I actually remember when you were the one that proposed talking every week before the word podcast wasn't even on our radar.
Of course, yeah.
And I even remember then thinking, being a yes person, like, let's do this, but I'm not sure why or what we're going to get out of it. But I will tell you, whether it's, you don't need a podcast as an entrepreneur, but what you do need is a support group.
Yes.
Of advisors, of friends, of peers, of fellow businessmen. And you've got to find that through local makerspaces, chambers of commerce, other successful business. You've done actually a really good job of finding successful business people and getting them on your team to talk to them, right?
Well, it's like, you know, you attract what you think about most and what you talk about and what you do and act and things like that. So even I would talk business with my chiropractor, with my dentist, with the principal of our school, of the kids' school. And, you know, you find business out there. And I'm sick and tired of having these shallow surface conversations. Right. How's it going? It's going great. How's the weather? And I'm super awkward in those kind of situations. So I really admire finding people that will actually go deep into a conversation fairly quickly.
It's almost a filter. It's like the Nigerian email scams. The reason that they're so bad and obvious is because it's a filter to weed out the people that would have never fallen for it in the first place.
That's true.
It's like get awkwardly deep, awkwardly quick, and it doesn't work out. I cut my losses.
Yeah, you haven't lost anything.
Right. It's funny.
Yep. Yeah, but that's how you find interesting people. And like, perfect example, you know, I walk the kids to school every morning and there's other parents in the parking lot and we say hi and we say how's the weather. And I might know these people for 2 years before I eventually talk further with them, and I'm like, holy cow, you're a super interesting person. Like, how did I not know this? We just wasted 2 years of time. Or you waste that 2 years on someone that isn't that cool.
Or just not into your thing.
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so what do you, when you meet, the perfect example, because there's potentially a social awkwardness, when you meet one of your kids, school kids' parents,
Right.
what do you say that you do?
It depends on the context and the situation, because, you know, we manufacture knives, and, you know, like Phil calls me John Knifey Sharpie. I don't exactly want to just tell everybody I make sharp pointy things, because I don't want to be perceived as like someone who makes weapons, because they're tools, they're not weapons.
Right.
But people twig, you know, knife equals dangerous, sharp, things like that. You must be like a, you know, fighter or something. No, I'm like the teddy bearest guy ever. I like making a quality tool. So I tell people I'm in manufacturing. I tell people.
Well, there's like the alleged weapon sensitivity of a knife, but then also, you know, you could make anything beautiful. Like a knife is your vehicle, and I get that, and I don't. But you know, pens, flashlights, whatever. Like I think it's a disservice to say somebody you're a knife maker, because I think about leather sheaths or walnut handles. I don't think about what you do as a CNC guru, machining expert, process. You know, that stuff.
Yeah, and especially when I go to the tool shows. At the tool shows, people find it really interesting that I'm a knife maker, because it's like everybody else just makes widgets and things and like jobs for other people. So I do stand out in conversation there, which is nice. But I wholeheartedly tied together high-end manufacturing with the craft of the niche object that we're making right now, whatever that may be. But
we went to one of our metal suppliers for our fixture plates, and we brought a finished fixture plate to try to solve some problems that we were having. And here I am, you know, as small a customer as they come, and this is a metal supplier that's traded on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, that does billions of dollars a year. So I'm thinking like David Goliath, and they were all blown away. They're like, you don't understand, we never get to see the final product and they saw the pride that we put into the quality and the manufacturing, and they got to meet me and put a face with the name, and they could see how I spoke about it.
because your fixtures are beautiful.
Yeah, the packaging. And when people ask, like, hey, how do you build relationships? First of all, vendors are absolutely part of your team. Like, yes, they may be selling to you, but they are so important. And you got to build relationships with them, and don't take for granted that showing them a flashlight or a pen and just pouring yourself into it can help them help you.
So was this an aluminum plate or a steel one?
This is a steel plate. This is a while back, and it had to do, the problem was solved by understanding some of the processes that were happening before it ever even got to heat treat.
Oh, this was months ago. We talked a lot about this.
Yeah, and we totally got it isolated. But let me tell you, the solution was stupidly simple, but also perplexed. You know, again, a metallurgist at this company, a guy who ran a grinding company for 30 years, the heat treaters. Everyone was stumped until we all figured it out, which is great.
Yeah, I remember both on and off the podcast, you were stumped on this for months. Do we surface grind first? Do we heat treat first?
Yeah, it was pencils down for a while.
Right. I'm super glad you got it figured out.
Me too. Yeah. And that's fun thing. Like, that's one of those little niches where, you know, in some respects, making fixture plates isn't that hard if you look at it. But I'll tell you, it's pretty darn tricky to replicate. You know, it's not just a product; it's the process that goes into all of it.
Yeah, and to make any type of product super high end, super quality, pour your heart and soul into it. You might just look at it and go, "It's a big piece of metal with a bunch of holes in it." No, but every hole is within a few tenths, and the whole plate is flat within a few thou, and all these, it's coated, and it looks nice, and there's no dings and scratches.
Right.
It's got your logo on it, packaging, like, and not only that, but all the mid-process stuff, like when you ship it to the anodizer for the aluminum ones, it has to be packaged so that they don't get dinged up. They have to do a good job, and all this QC, like, there's so many steps.
It reminds me of your dilemmas or debates on tubing for, I think, for pens and flashlights, maybe separately, but do you buy billet? Do you buy extrusion? Do you have an extrusion made? How do you drill it? What are the tolerances? Is it flip? Like, this is not just buy the piece of aluminum, cut it up, machine it, and you're done. This is what's the grain of the extrusion? Does it have built up stresses?
Yep, and how's their tolerance level? Because if you're buying tubing, you need the ID and the OD to be a super consistent tolerance if you're making every other part to match it.
Okay.
So the tubing for the pens that we bought is luckily super, like, pretty good consistency. Like, all the bars were less than 1 thou diameter deviation. The OD finish was pretty good, although kind of scuffed up just from like moving around shops and shipping and all that stuff.
You turn the whole OD though?
No.
You
We
don't.
didn't, yeah.
It tumbles.
It tumbled out nicely, which is good. I was worried that there would be like bigger scratches and dings and stuff, or the grain of the extrusion process or whatever, but no, they turned out really good. I think they're actually centerless ground.
Really?
Yeah. Which
For tubing?
Yep.
What's interesting, a guy from Timken just emailed us for some reason.
Like Timken Bearings? Nice.
And I don't recall the details. It was a bit of a lengthy email, but I guess he works for Timken, makes some sort of a tubing product steel. Maybe it's internal for their own bearings, or maybe they sell it. But he was talking about the process of not rolling, but stretching tubing over the mandrels to form the ID and the OD, which I believe is how it's all made. You kind of take a wafer of steel, punch a hole in it so it becomes a donut, and then you start drawing that donut out over ID OD mandrels. So you can see how funny a process that is, but that's how you get seamless tubing. And
Really?
I may be wrong, and there may be multiple ways to do it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it starts as some thicker, shorter version and gets elongated. But you can also think about the stresses and the grain structure that is a result of that, and those dies will change over time.
Sure.
Before they are replaced or touched up.
Yeah, and I'm thinking for the flashlights, it'll be, I don't know the exact dimensions, either 1 inch or 3/4 OD with an ID through bore. And I'm like, we could either buy solid titanium and remove 80% of it, or my titanium supplier said that they can custom make any size tubing.
Really?
Yeah. There's
You gotta buy a mile.
I think
of
a
it or
500 foot minimum quantity. And I'm like, how many flashlights is that? That's actually not that bad.
No.
Or whatever the quantity actually was, but
You own it then, though. You got to make it work.
exactly. So, make your prototypes from bar and make it work.
Sure.
I don't think drilling that big diameter is not going to be such a big deal.
Correct.
Drilling the pens a 1/4 inch, 3 inches deep, or 4 inches deep gets a little tricky. It's totally possible, but I was failing a lot a month or two ago.
Remind me, what was it, Lauren's on WhatsApp that said drills work better when the drill is rotating and the part is stationary?
No, when both are spinning.
No.
That's what I think. Yeah, I've heard of people doing that. So you put a drill in a live tool holder with coolant through, preferably.
Oh yeah,
I don't
sure.
have any coolant through live holders.
Okay.
And then so you spin the drill one way and you spin the part the other way, and they feed into each other.
You still have to maintain like a $150 surface footage, though. You can't like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
you
you half the RPM.
Yeah, right.
And I have done that a little bit, just not with coolant through, and it works awesome. Apparently, it's better for concentricity. I think it is. It's like gun drilling.
Gun drilling, that I've seen the parts stationary, but that doesn't mean anything. Interesting. When you have failed, do you know why?
Not always. By fail, I mean breaking many $80 drill bits in a row.
Right. But like, was it heat, gumminess, lack of chip evacuation? Is titanium consistent? Are there hard spots, soft spots?
All good questions. Maybe I assumed it was like a speeds and feeds issue, but I was doing like by the book recommended OSG. Some people say run it harder, some people say run it slower. And
was this before though you had dialed in the X, Y of that tool? Didn't you have an issue with that where you saw it was out like 2 thou?
Right. And then I fix it, and then I put the new drill in, and then try it again. Next one breaks.
Oh, really?
And not consistently, like not right away, but after a couple maybe. And then I was making the pocket clip on the SAGA pen. And eventually I realized, holy cow, I don't actually have to drill that deep. I just need to drill like 1/2 inch deep, not 3 inches deep.
Wait, say again?
So the clip of the pen has a round part, and then the rest is the clip. It's
The machine part. Yeah.
So I'm like, I could just machine all that away.
Oh, you don't have to drill through it. Right.
So that saved a lot of effort once I figured that out.
Do end mills in titanium tend to last quite long, or no?
Depends on how. Not like aluminum.
Okay.
Aluminum, you like never replace them.
Yeah, years, right? Sometimes.
No, we get 10 or 20 knives on a lot of end mills. You're recording, right?
Yeah, just checking.
Good to know.
Grimsmo and I both have never not recorded the backup for our Business of Machining podcast. In 75 episodes, we've always both been good about it. And then on the last episode, we both forgot.
Like 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh, I didn't hit record. I hope John didn't notice. And then he did the same thing like 5 minutes later. Yeah.
So we are driving to, what's the town's name? I keep saying
Kitchener,
which is the home of two companies that are kind of the same, sort of. We're going to learn more. CAMplete, which is the software company that makes, you can call it different things. You can call it simulation software. You can call it verification software, collision detection, posting software, automation software. I just realized this too in Lockwood comment that you can use, I think, CAMplete to handle pallet management for automation, which is kind of an interesting thing. Which got me thinking, like, whoa, wait a minute here. If my machine controller doesn't have automation, if I can push all that stuff through the post, then I don't need it, right? Because you can just run M codes to handle. It's not that much to do.
That's a good question.
So we got to ask them. Right. But then they also run a super dialed-in shop called Miltera. I believe they make really, really, really awesome 5-axis parts, including turbochargers and blisks. Their website has their list of equipment, and you're talking.
I was looking through that.
Matsura LXs,
GF, Micron, Mill, like the best of the best 5-axis kind of stuff. Yeah. You just keep looking. You're like, they've got everything. They've got all the cool toys, and I can't wait to see.
Yes. And they like many of the shops that own this equipment, most of their stuff is sensitive, but I think we figured out a way to film and make sure we keep everybody happy. Sure. Because I want to share this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently, not only is it really cool from a machine tool standpoint and part standpoint, but also lots of automation.
Oh, I can't wait. So John and I, we've been talking about this for months on the podcast, about our I almost want to call it a newfound obsession with 5-axis machining. You especially, because you're using the 5-axis trunnion on your Haas, and I've been doing kind of 4-axis machining on my lathe.
Oh yeah, sure.
So that was like the first time I've dove into wrap tool paths and things like that, and it's like a whole new world. And I can only imagine a 5-axis part where you're holding the part like this and you have full access, right? This side, rotation, everything. You can contour and.
But it's weird because 4-axis is sort of an extension of 3-axis.
Right. It's like 3 plus 1.
5-axis is to me a completely different branch. I don't ever think, oh, it's 4 with more power. It's just really totally different.
Right. And on the lathe, you could also call it 3 plus 1 kind of thing, because it's XYZ plus a rotational value.
So you can do them simultaneous though, right?
Yeah, you can.
And you do.
Yes. Not all 4.
Well, sorry, nobody ever.
Yeah.
Rarely does anybody actually do all 4, but really you tie in the C while you're doing X or Z.
X or Z, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Although with 5-axis, it's likely that you would be using all 5 at the same time, right?
A lot of times on mine, I wouldn't be doing necessarily in Y. Oh, you could. More likely you could, yeah. But like if I'm doing a swarf chamfer, there's probably one axis that's idle because it has to move in like X, Z, and B, whatever.
Right. Have you found any limitations? Like obviously you're learning your trunnion and your Haas more, but have you found anything like, man, this controller's really slow, or it can't keep up with the code, or the finish is bad, that's not your fault?
You do have to be conscious of, it's not, we live in this 3-axis world where these machines can go 500 or 1,000 inches a minute, but when you have 5-axis machining, not only are the drive mechanisms different on the knuckle or platter, but you've got moves that would require, and I can't explain this as eloquently as I wish I could, but if you have a point on a part that's way out in space, and you try to do a move across it, your X-axis on the table may only have to move 2 or 3 inches, but the platter may have to rotate like 120 degrees. So you've got all these drive systems that have to stay together, and
So 403 is the one. 403 West.
Machines like the linear motor machines, or even really high-end machines, can do that quite well. But nevertheless, it's a limitation that I'm learning to be aware of. And the easy way for me to solve it right now is slowing down your feed rate. So like we're programming most of our True 5 stuff at about this way,
Straight.
right here. We're good.
Yep.
I'm programming a lot of my stuff at like 30 to 90 inches a minute, if you want to talk in IPM, which isn't slow. I would like to think at some point I'll go faster, but it's like the same thing with speeds and feeds or anything else. I'd rather start with something that works and then build up.
Yep. To me, that sounds decent or even slightly fast because I'm like stainless and titanium all day, every day.
Yeah.
So for aluminum, like Amish was telling me, he rips through aluminum at 1,200 inches per minute, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. We've cut a bunch of aluminum jobs, and I'm not in the least bit worried about the Haas trunnion's ability to cut steel, but nevertheless, it'll be a little different. I want to see how it works. And I actually brought a 5-axis or our mod vise, which I want to start trying to make. It'll be 3+2, but trying to figure out the work holding. And I thought, you know what? Let's pick the brains of the folks at CAMplete who
Absolutely.
are probably pretty experienced at that.
Yeah, and with our parts, I mean, we're going to be making knives for a long time. Typically, a knife is a 3-axis part. They're like flat slabs of metal that might have a bunch of 3D machining features to them. 5-axis doesn't have like the best place in that kind of work, other than using the side of the ball nose to cut better. So there are a lot of benefits in that scenario. And then also just work holding, fixturing, tombstones and pallets and things like that. That having a 5-axis machine with a multiple pallet pool, with like all these mini tombstones with parts all wrapped around it, like that has me so invigorated. You talk to a tooling rep and they're like, oh, you need a 4-axis horizontal to make these parts. And I'm like, yeah, I understand where you're going. It's a 3-axis mill on its side. You can load up pallets, you can have a 5-pallet changer, you can run 24/7, but that's not exactly where I want to take this business. That's the automotive style of production. I want to do more of the aerospace. We hired a guy out of aerospace, and he's been awesome. And it's just a different mentality. It's like, let's just make this the best. Let's make it slower and better and more quality, and just use the technology to our advantage instead of just go, more.
I think if you introduced a product or a line of something that was super dedicated, super high volume, a dedicated for horizontal machine could make sense, but I think the beauty of the 5-axis is it can be some number, 80% as productive. I don't know if making that up,
but also versatile.
Exactly. Prototyping, testing, manufacturing. You could buy one of these 20 or 50 pallet machines, and on the same machine, it could have lights, pens. I mean, no joke, you could, I'm sure somebody has done this, where you could tie in a machining center with your ERP system, and it could literally decide what product to run next based on current sales trends of the day. Like, that's not even crazy to do.
Yep.
Hey, let's run some pens right now, next shift, get those done. Or let's look at bottlenecks downstream. Hey, the lapping machine is already slammed, so let's not make parts that need lapped. Let's go to do other parts. I mean, like, that's not even crazy anymore.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, when you think about it, it's just like simple numbers and calculations.
Yeah.
Once all the data is there.
Once you know what you need to do.
Yep.
That's fun. It's cool. I was talking to a reporter yesterday, and we'll see if the article goes anywhere, but I was like, we live in such a great world to be in manufacturing. The information, the knowledge, the energy, the enthusiasm, the capabilities, the software, the resources, like, it is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it takes zero effort to go out and learn and be inspired, because with all the YouTube content, all the Instagram content, everything is out there. I mean, you and I learned from the internet, like, literally, and then going out and doing it.
Yeah. It was weird to recap. Yeah. We recapped our story with this reporter yesterday, and look, it's fun to talk about yourself. I will admit that. And I told this story in a very casual and honest, in short way. I kept it brief. And she was like, "Wait, are you serious? Like this?" And she kept probing, and the story kept checking out, and we would dive deeper down these rabbit holes, which kind of corroborated the whole thing. And it was in and of itself kind of fun and invigorating
it is fun talking to people who are asking more questions about your business and genuinely interested, and then kind of blowing their mind. And to us, it's just like, that's been the past 10 years. That's my life. Like, I know it's probably interesting, but I don't exactly see that all the time until you talk to people who normally only know regular businesses.
So we filmed a bunch of 5-axis parts this past week or two, and we'll get those videos edited here in the next few weeks. And I'm trying to remember what it's like, because I've already lost that sort of greenness or naivety when you didn't know. Like, I've already figured stuff out, and you forget what it's like when you didn't know how to do these things. And so I've been feverishly taking notes, because, again, that's the difference with 5-axis things. It's like, hey, there's 3 ways to do a chamfer on a part. So you could do blend, you could do flow, you can do multi-axis, actually 4 ways. You can do swarf, and it's kind of like, hey, what are the pros and cons of those different ways? What tools you use, the motion of the machine. I now understand Lockwood's comment about it being a problem when the Z minimum of when your spindle can't drop below center line of your part. And it makes so much sense now, because if you were trying to chamfer a shoebox on its back side, you would need to tip that shoebox down below center and have the end wheel come down to get to it to walk around it. So I'm like, oh my God, yeah, of course I can't have a machine that stops 2 inches above the center line.
Or you need a tool that's like 8 inches long.
But that gets, anyway, so I was thinking about how would I do a video that would try to explain and walk folks along what we've learned. And I think it's actually a bit simpler than I thought. There's 5-axis machining that's 3+2, which most people get. It's positional. Yeah. Then there's 5-axis that is simultaneously but inadvertently so, which is, let's say I want to rough out a part, but I want to tip it over to get a better, I want to use the side of the ball end mill. So I'm actually using a 3-axis strategy, and the computer is doing all of the 5-axis work by just saying, hey, rotate it 20 degrees on its 2 sides. And then there's the more true 5 stuff where you're actually like running intentional 5-axis tool paths.
Makes sense.
Which we'll see today.
Yep. So do you have any, if you went out today and bought a 5-axis machine, do you have any ways you're leaning?
Brands? Yeah, it's a debate between the what I will call the path of least resistance, which would be to pick up a UMC 750. We know the controller, we know the brand, we know the service. We've been very happy. The value is there. It's the least controversial decision. It's in line with the moves that we've made to date in terms of recognizing that for us, don't make parts on machines that don't buy a Mori when you don't need a Mori, right? Or whatever however you want to say it. One of my thoughts, at least long term or medium term, is to actually be willing to look at what else is out there. I don't want to be ever perceived as a Haas fanboy. That's not what it's about. I do think that the motion profiles and the capabilities of the higher end machine tools, as well as stepping into a Heidenhain control, maybe a Siemens, but it seems like Heidenhain is the best for that, would be pretty darn fun. And there's no question about it. If I all of a sudden could just pick a machine right now, I need to learn more, so this is more just fun. But like a Hermle C32 is not a machine I would kick out of my shop. And the problem is that even if you could think about how you could afford that, or they have an eco line or economy line that's the C300, which would be for us totally fine. The problem is that not only is it a lot of money, but it's money that we don't necessarily need and you could use to do other things. Buy another mill, buy a lathe. So that's what weighs on you as an entrepreneur is allocation of resources.
Exactly. Yeah, like the price break between a UMC 750 and the next level up, German or Japanese or something, is like double or triples.
That's insane.
That's a big deal.
There's so much, in my opinion, so much turbulence right now as well. DMG, Mori, in my opinion, is quite turbulent right now, period. They just redid their DMU 50, which is a big change, in my opinion, going from the epoxy granite back to casting. So it's kind of like, I don't want to be the guinea pig on that. Why did you make that big change? We unfortunately have had a great time with Matsuura, but an absolute horrible experience with Yamazen, their reseller. And I'll leave it at that. But that, for us, rules it off the list. What are the other really good? I'm not a Mazak guy.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah.
No reason.
Akuma.
So I've got a friend in South Africa who had a bunch of Haas's, UMC 750, and just got a Doosan 5-axis. And he said, with a Fanuc control, pretty sure. And he said, world of difference.
What?
Yeah, between the UMC 750 and the Doosan, better.
It's interesting because I would think they're, at the risk of flaming somebody here, I would think they're comparable.
Yeah.
I don't think of Doosan as being, I think of it, if there's value line, middle of the road, and then the Ubers.
Right.
I made a list of the Uber end machines too. I was thinking about doing a post on them.
Like Yazda and...
Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't know Mitsui Siki was so darn good.
Huh.
They are. Like they are up there with Yazda and Makino. And then it's funny because when you look at those tiers, you realize, okay, Okuma is probably just at the very top of the tier below, though.
If you had to have 3 tiers?
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with any of those tiered levels. Yazda is a freaking expensive Kern. It seems to, I've never heard somebody say, no, this machine is definitively better than a Kern. So Kern, I guess, is the top. Yazda, Makino, Mitsui Siki, maybe GF Micron, probably Hermle, at least the C line of Hermle, C32s. It's, just for fun.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to realize, like you said, the allocation of funds, like you can buy a $2 million sports car, but if you just need it to get to A to B.
Oh, sure.
But same for machines. Like you can buy a Yazda, which is probably $1 million or more, but can you afford it? Do you need it? Is it going to ROI?
So that's why, look, I got to do some more soul searching.
Right.
I think it may lead to the UMC being the, no one says the UMC has to be your first and last 5-axis machine. Sure. It may lead to that for now, especially if we can sell that trunnion and help roll those funds into a UMC. What was I going to say?
I figure if you look at the higher end needs, if I get a 5-axis machine, I need lots of tools and I need a pallet chain.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of
whether you integrate, I don't see a point doing it otherwise. That's the reason I want to do it.
You're different. So right now for me, the 5-axis, the need, I think the Haas would serve our need,
right.
And the want for the Hermle is intellectual curiosity, fun, YouTube, and none of that actually justifies the money.
Right.
So what's weird is that I would be willing to, I would probably be willing to do a 18-month lease on a Herm lathe, even if it were a used Herm.
Short. But
Right.
yeah.
But like, it would let me make the videos. It would let me learn. It would let me have fun. I don't have an identifiable need for Saunders products or whatever. You're totally different. You need to like tool up, game up, like, you know.
And produce.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, we're in the unique position where we have a manufacturing challenge. Like, the shortcoming is on the manufacturing side, and then if we solve that, then it'll be on the finishing side as well. But both can scale up together. Thankfully, we have no shortage of customers who are interested in buying our stuff. So the work is out there is the point I'm getting at. Is,
Yeah, right.
we almost can't make a bad decision as long as we're smart about it. Yeah.
But that's why your machine, I think you're going to have 8 tool holders that are just soft deburring tools. I mean, seriously, like that's why when you see the 240 tool ATC, I can start to see why that's something that plays into your world.
I realized in my mill right now, there's 30 tool holders. 4 of them are the exact same end mill doing different jobs.
Is that right?
Yep.
Why?
Rougher, finisher titanium, finisher stainless.
Oh.
Maybe there's only 3.
Great tip, though. I mean, from something I've heard from folks smarter than I am about machining is, if you want really good finishes and even good tool life, don't mix alloys and metals on tooling.
Yeah, I've come to notice that. I was talking with the guys from Imugi, and they don't agree. They're like, you should be able to run everything. And I'm like,
I don't buy that.
Yeah, I'm like, I haven't seen that. I find that the blades, like when we finish machine the blades, it tends to chip the end mill faster than when it just uses titanium. So I don't want to mix them.
Say that again?
The stainless steel blades that we're cutting, even though they're soft condition, tend to chip the end mill and wear it faster. And if I put that wear mark on titanium, it's just going to make the titanium look worse.
Yeah, sure.
So I have a dedicated finisher that only touches titanium, and then I have a separate one that only touches stainless. And I have a rougher that does both.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, maybe that's not the best idea, but I'm super limited with my tool holders because a pallet of parts literally takes 29 tools.
Do either of your finishers become the rougher?
Yes.
Okay, you don't. So the rougher will have finished one of the 2 materials beforehand. Got it. Okay, how long does an end mill last as a carbidizing tool for the end of the
Very, very long time.
Okay.
Like ever.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we broke one or something, but
It's funny.
yeah.
Can I ask you a crazy question?
Absolutely.
Can you scientifically prove or show that that's not a myth? Like, you're not just depositing pixie dust on there that immediately evaporates?
I mean, we see it on there, like the carbon or the carbide.
Okay.
Yep, it definitely balls up. It definitely looks and feels rougher and grittier.
Okay.
And then we Scotch-Brite that surface down, and you can see a different shininess level. So it's absolutely deposited on there. Yeah. The benefits are less lock stick.
Benefits are less lock stick. Yeah.
So I mean, that's why we do it. A lot of people.
So not that the blade collapses inadvertently, but rather you can't get it open.
Exactly.
Or you can't get the lock bar side to close the knife.
Right.
You want to close it.
Yeah, so since we're on YouTube, John is referencing a video we did about carbidizing our lock faces. Demonstration purposes. So yeah, hopefully we can link here to the carbidizing video, but adding a layer of carbide literally to the end of the lock bar makes it so that this is not so sticky. And yours is what, 2 years old almost, and it feels great still.
Nothing to see here, just 2 fellows driving down the highway with a GoPro and a knife out doing a little video.
Yep. As we drive up next to a police officer.
Yeah, I know, right? I cleaned it once, which was cool to like take it apart.
Yep.
I've almost caught myself having lost one of the screws because I noticed it was loose, but then I tightened it up with the included wrench.
Nice.
And I've been pretty impressed. I mean, I've now used it a ton, and I would love to I'd love to pay Eric to give me a tuned-up edge.
Yep, yeah, he will for sure. It's not dull, but I'm glad to see you have used it. It's good.
I mean, like I've used it as a screwdriver. I've used it to cut open packing strips. Like I use it.
Well, before I got into making knives, I had broken the tip off of 2 Spyderco Delicas because I used it as a screwdriver, and it's a very pointy blade. So designing the Norseman, I was like, let me build something a little bit stouter and beefier in the tip because I know people are going to be stupid with it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody has broken the tip off of a rasp.
That's interesting.
Because if you're using a $1,000 knife as a screwdriver with a tip like that, you're kind of asking for trouble. But yeah.
It's the one thing that truly blows me away is when I switched from carrying my cheapo, might even be in here, like a box cutter. It's a little it's literally like $8 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Buck knife folder thing, which is quite small and quite thin. When I switched to carrying the Norseman, which I don't even know, it wasn't a year ago, but maybe 9 months ago, I thought I'll have to get used to having such a large, heavy knife. And I'm not kidding you, I never even noticed it. It doesn't even bother me one bit, which is I don't understand because I carry a flashlight. The flashlight's fine. I've carried concealed firearms, and those are you know you got them on you. Like it's not like exciting to do it, but that good to go. I'm actually excited. I've never touched another Norseman, having now carried and used mine for so long.
Yeah, so John's is number 568. I see the date on the inside is June 2016. Side note for everybody making parts, date everything.
Yeah.
Serial numbers are cool, dates are even better. I mean, I write Sharpie dates on everything I buy. Like the drills that I buy, I did a white paint marker. I'm like, no, this is a February 2018 vintage. It just takes all the question out of it, and then you look at it 2 years down the road, and you don't have to think about it. You just know.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah. Especially with the parts. Like, I don't remember when I sold this to him. I remember doing it, but I don't remember when.
Yeah.
And now it was exactly 2 years ago. That's super awesome.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah.
What do you guys do on your fixture plates? You serial or you?
They're either numbered or labeled for sure. We don't date those. Oh, I'm sorry. The fixture plates for the fixture plates are numbered. They're labeled. The actual product that is sold to the customer has 3 pieces of information. It has a serial number, which we track internally, has a made in Zanesville, Ohio text engraved on it, and then it has the date it was made, manufactured on date. So it's this triangle of information.
Love it.
And you were an inspiration for that, but I got to give shout out to Tyson Lamb was the one who was kind of like, you got to add an element of like, this isn't just a piece of steel. It's something that you made. Like you got to put your touch, your pride in it, which is one reason I also really like the Made in Zanesville.
Yes, it's super local, and you look at that and you just go, wow, this guy really cared about it.
Right.
You know, Made in the USA is great. Made in Zanesville, Ohio is like that next level higher. A couple, maybe 6 months ago or something, I finally started engraving Made in Canada with little maple leaf on the inside of our knives.
Yeah.
And you probably don't know this, but there's a prolific knife reviewer called Nick Shabazz, who has these just hilarious kind of rant videos about all the cool knives out there. He loves our stuff, but he'll give an honest review of it. And he got his hands on one and he took it apart compared to one from like 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
Which was really, really cool comparison. And then he goes, one thing I noticed, and he's got this crazy voice for the show. He's like, one thing I noticed is that the new one says Made in Canada, and they've always been made in Canada, but maybe they just weren't very proud of it.
That's funny.
Because now we say
Canadian?
No, he's from the States.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we say proudly made in Canada on the inside, which I'm super happy to put in there.
That's awesome. There's also something that's, to me, a point of pride about when you do engraving well. It just looks freaking money. Oh.
We can cheat a little bit because we tumble our parts.
Okay.
So if a burr kicks up from the engraving, there's a certain limit.
Yeah.
Like I feel that engraving after every pallet, and I make sure the guys do too. And if it starts to kick up a burr, I'm like, that tool's going out. Let's set the wear counter to match, and make sure we don't let it go too far. Otherwise, the tumbler won't really kick down those edges. And even now, like we hard engrave the serial number on the blades. And right now it's a 1-by-1 process, and it's kind of annoying and time consuming, but happy to do it.
You haven't written a macro for it?
I have, I just haven't gotten it to work yet. I need like a few hours of silence. I made this elaborate fixture with angled blades and 6 at a time and a count up.
Oh yeah, that thing. We talked about that a while back.
Yeah, I'll show you tonight or tomorrow. Like I said, I just need like a few hours of silence to be able to work my head through that macro, because it got very complicated very fast. But it's going to be epic when we do. Because right now we're engraving, it takes like 7.5 minutes to engrave a blade.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot.
It is a lot. And you know, you think 7 minutes, no big deal, but we do 6 or 12 at a time, so you're tying up that mill for like 2 hours or something. And that's an entire pallet of parts that we don't get to run anymore on that day. So with that new pallet, we can do it at night. We can do it automatic,
That's
you know?
the other such an obvious point about 5-axis work and automation work that didn't occur to me until somebody said it and it sunk in, which is you do all your normal complex work during the day. The stuff that runs overnight is your cake work. It's the annoying engraving that you want to preserve tool life, so I want to run it slower, let it take longer, but I don't care because it's at 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's the goal. And something Rob told me that really helped click with the 5-axis multiple pallet situation and staging your work. And he's like, if I have a job that's ready to run, I'll run that while I'm programming the fixture for the next job. And then while the next pallet is staged for that fixture with raw material. And then the next job is already scheduled to run, and then I'm already planning the next fixture and the next job. So every pallet is like...
Getting a little disgusted, right?
Exactly. But every pallet is like raw material for a fixture, and then the next job.
Right.
And then when that's running, you can rotate through, and then you have your fixture done. And that's how you get 24/7 runtime. And it's like, holy cow, that makes perfect sense. Because right now, while the mill isn't a quote-unquote bottleneck, it is.
It is.
Because we
I think it is a quote-unquote bottleneck.
like we do a night run, so work is happening while we're not there, and we could maximize that a lot more. But there's so many times where I'm like, man, I just need to make a clamp right now. I just need to make a little fixture. I just need to bust out this engraving. And I don't have time to do that. And it takes focus too, like to be able to program and set up and run.
Well, it's like the Jay Pearson comment of like when my shop guy says that his computer's slow and a problem and 2 years old, Jay doesn't go pull up how much RAM it has or question him or say let's do a print solid. Jay goes on the website and buys the guy a new computer. Like I think short of your real estate space constraint, you probably are at the point where, again, if I were that outside investor, I would say, good grief, get this guy a mill.
I think the current stage of machine purchases, maybe it's not like the best dream scenario if I had all the money in the world, but a small RoboDrill / Speedio would alleviate a lot. We want to do all the engraving on there, all the foam, all the, maybe even start deburring the handles on that machine, because it can take as long as it takes and take the man hours out of it. And then eventually some sort of palletized system. We need a bigger shop for that for sure. And then a Swiss lathe to make pens and knife parts and things like that.
But the Swiss lathe, except for the bar feeder, could be quite small, right?
Yes.
So it'd be like a...
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if I could fit one in my shop now.
I bet you could.
I bet you I could with a 6-foot bar feeder.
Yeah.
I always, in my head, I think of them as a 12-foot bar feeder. So I think, oh, they're huge and long, and I'm like, wait, you can actually buy a 3-foot or a 6-foot bar feeder just as productive, you know?
Yeah, right.
Because we don't make...
There's so many parts out of a 6-foot stick.
Yeah. And we don't make tens of thousands of parts. We just need the high mix capability to do our parts. And also Angelo said, like, if you get a 12-foot bar feeder, you got to store and buy and ship 12-foot bars.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's a problem. That's...
Amish gave a really good idea, so freaking obvious, and a great tip for anyone out there who's machining parts, especially job shop or prototyping. Most of the time, getting a 2D or 3D adaptive strategy on your part to rough out that material is quick and generally not something where you've got to play with a lot of your speeds and feeds and fine details.
Okay.
So this is crazy, but Amish is like, yeah, when I get a job in, the first thing I'll do, I'll throw down the 3D adaptive, I'll get it in the machine, and while it's roughing that part out, I'll program the rest of it. So obvious, right?
Right.
what are the odds that you're going to gouge or create a problem? Not much. I mean, you got to be smart, but like, really, that's free time right there.
Wow. Whereas the typical way that I would probably do it is sit down and try to program the whole thing. I want to see it done. I want to see it finished. I want to have in my head all the tools that I need, and that's cool. But it is a different mentality to have this, let's push work through the floor as quickly as possible and really well.
The customs border patrol individual gave me actually a bit of a hard time this morning, and she's like, "What are you here for?" And I'm like, "Well, to visit a friend. I run a podcast with him." "Well, is it for work?" And I said no, because I'm not getting paid to doing this. We're here for fun, socially, to see John. And then she's like, "Why aren't you at your job?" And I'm like, "Well, I own my company." And she's like, "What are you doing with him?" And I'm thinking, well, I brought my profilometer, my roughness tester, my microscope, but like, I don't think she wants to hear any of that. And I'm like, we're just hanging out. And I was like, that sounds so lame, but it's kind of what we're doing.
Yep. But also, as you said to me, like, you don't blame her for doing her job well. Like, you respect that too, right? But it is funny, like, and then how do you answer these questions?
Right.
Like, you posted a picture of your back seat with like the profilometer and all this crazy stuff, and guys are commenting going, "Oh man, that's going to be interesting questions at the border."
Yeah, right.
And it's true.
Yeah. Do you have any weapons or firearms, sir? Nope, but I got a lot of metrology equipment.
Yep.
So what is that?
Yeah. How much time you got?
Yeah.
Do you ever get that? You mentioned it briefly earlier in the episode, but where you start to take things so for granted that you realize eventually that the person you're talking to has no idea what you're talking about? Like metrology as a term, like lay people don't know what that means.
Right.
Even machining, what is that?
Dude, I didn't hear that term until maybe 2 years ago on a Tom Lipton video, and I use it like I own the word, but I didn't know the word metrology definitively meant the science of measuring stuff. I'm still pretty darn green there too. No, I try to, maybe it's to my own detriment, but look, it goes back to that Wednesday widget of about joking about being so awkward at the Super Bowl. Like, it's not that I don't do I just don't enjoy at this point in my life hanging out with the guys who want to talk about the sports games. Yep. Not because I'm trying to make a point, but it's just because, like, man, I'd rather be hanging out with you or like people that can, talk about the stuff we love to talk about.
Right. Yep, the application of skill and knowledge and learning, and I totally agree. It's interesting because we've both got young children, and I noticed this. You don't want to talk to them like they're babies. You want to say the hard words so that they learn them and they understand them, and you want to talk like a normal person. And it's the same thing with even with adults, but with technical things. Like, you don't want to baby everything down to be like, well, okay, let me think of all the simple words that you'll understand, because you want to teach them too, right? But you don't want to like blank stare them.
Like a year ago, my mom's car battery died, and she was in a pickle, and my dad was out of town or something, and so she called me, and I came over, and whatever, she drives a Toyota, and I looked at it and did a test. I tested it with my multimeter and went and picked up a battery and swapped the lugs out on it, and she looked at me and she's like, "Where did you learn to do all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Do you realize what I do every day?" Like, what?
This is the easiest.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, what? Serious?
That's awesome.
Does Meg understand what you do?
Yeah, I'd think so.
But isn't it weird that she has no idea what G01 X2 Y2 means? Like, no clue, right?
Well, it's interesting because I either come home excited or exhausted. Typical day. That's fine. So I'll tell her all this stuff. She always wants to know what's going on, and she follows along great, and she asks awesome questions, and she's super interested and super happy that I've found my zing, and boy, have I ever, like, people have asked, like, if you could do absolutely anything in the world, money's no object, if you could do anything for work, and I'm like, I wouldn't change anything. I would just do more. I would do way, way, way more.
That's what I think we both probably take for granted. It's like, literally, I don't think, I can't think of the scenario in which I would change what I'm doing. And that's tough. That's weird.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want more, push myself harder. I think I owe myself more to do more and blah, blah, blah. But like,
Absolutely.
on the flip side, man, yeah.
Yeah, it's like under no circumstances are we done or, you know, found the Holy Grail or anything like that, but we are absolutely on the path. It's giving me goosebumps just thinking about, like, what else would I do? I might pivot within what I do, make something other than knives or something like that, but it's always going to be making, it's always going to be machining. Maybe not forever, but for now, like, this is...
But it scares me a little too, because of what we talked about in the last normal bomb about, like, when you get to hang out with people that kind of have it all, and like, what is their sense and purpose? And like, you know, if somebody came to you right now and said, I will purchase Grimsmo knives for $12 million, I'm making this up, $12 million. Well, okay, that would let you start over and buy all the machines you ever wanted and all this stuff. But then what? Mazak. I mean, like, that's really so. What does that money let you do that you can't right now? Like, you just, it's very awkward and weird when you actually start thinking about that.
That's a good point, because right now, if I had more money for within the business, I would put it into the business and I would buy more machines and make more products and everything like that. If somebody bought the company and I left, what would I do?
Right.
I would play, but honestly, playing for no purpose would get boring.
It would.
Because like right now we have a product to pour our hearts and souls into, and that drives me forward. It gives me direction and be like, okay, I want to make a pen, let's make the coolest pen ever. You know, I want to make a knife, let's make the coolest knife ever, things like that. And maybe I could find other niches, but it's a whole lot of starting over.
This is what people mean when they say money doesn't buy happy. Not that we're not happy, but like when they say celebrities don't want to be celebrities, or people who are rich are like, I wish I wasn't. Like, this is what they mean. Like, all of a sudden I had it back then. I didn't need, you know, literally adding digital digits to a bank account that you log into doesn't mean anything when you already get to do what you want to do, right? So how does that all tie in and reconcile? I still have this hunger, this thirst. Absolutely. I want more, but
maybe the misconception or the regular conception with most people who are unhappy in their current job is that money will allow them to do the things that they want to do in life.
But do them now.
Yeah, do them now, exactly. And that's what you and I are doing. Like, past 10 years of our lives, we've struggled, we've fought, we've worked very, very hard for what we have right now. Right. And it's been, like, look at us now. Like,
but you know, it's weird because I still hold a little bit of feelings that, how do I say this and not misstate what I want to say? When I wanted to leave New York City and earn my living full-time manufacturing, it is my opinion that there was a lot more resistance and hesitation and concern than there was, you are talented and deserve this or good or anything of those sorts. Like, right. And I don't fault the people that love me and are around me for that opinion. And generally I would say that yes, there's an overall theme of support, but nevertheless, it wasn't a, we're investing in you, we're doing it. It was much more of a, sure, let's push this, let's challenge this. And again, I don't say that that's the wrong thing.
I have the same.
But now that I guess I wish I had been more aggressive and more deliberate and more, no, you don't understand. I'm going to do this. Like, I've got this. Like, do you know, like, how I've set myself up for this and how hungry I am and how I've already proven all these little battles. And at this point, you know, we'd already done Strike Mark and we'd already sold things. Right. And they're like, no, I am, yes.
Yes. I think you had more data and conviction to go forward for what you were doing. Yeah. Whereas I just kind of, I always knew that I was going to do something myself. So it was sort of like frog boiling in water kind of thing. Like I totally eased my way forward, but I was all in from the beginning. It was just very poor and very stressful for many, many years. And then that just kind of faded away.
But I had to deal with this giant Niagara Falls, so to speak, of leaving a job and relocating my family.
So for you, it was more all of a sudden big decision, whereas for me, it was very gradual and consistent with kind of that same nagging the whole way. You should get a job. Why don't you go back to, or not back to school? Why don't you go to school? Why don't you take night classes? Become an auto mechanic, a welder, things like that. Get your certification. I'm just thinking about all these things, and I'm like, that's not what I want to do. that's not gonna help me. It's not gonna bring me happiness. It's gonna make me a paycheck, and that's great. Thankfully, my wife worked part-time, and we made just enough money to live the life we needed to live at the time.
Right.
And it was very stressful, but so it's like, from the outside, I don't fault them for doing it, because they're looking at us going, Meg works half-time and John doesn't do anything. And then, they need to make money, so John should be working. He's the man of the house kind of thing. Not to be sexist or anything, but that's the clear, logical progression, when outsiders are looking in going, you should be doing that.
Right.
But I had this internal hunger, drive, conviction for my whole life. My dad, the entrepreneur, kind of taught me that, and I sort of just absorbed it from him, and I didn't know how to do it, And then eventually, I found my niche, and I think that's one of the big push I need. I learned all the skills. I learned CNC machining. Then I found the niche, and I could apply it all.
So one of my goals with the NYC site was to create a smaller community of people that were kind of like-minded and wanted to talk in a more value-added workspace. And so we've done that with the membership and the forum, and there's some people on there that are posting like where they are in their entrepreneurial endeavors, and like the advice and the response that they're getting to me is priceless. This is better than getting an MBA. It's like the some of it's the cold hard truth, some of it is strategy advice, some of it is marketing advice. Right, like it's like, this is freaking awesome. So that's my third sort of goal, is how do I continue to grow that? How do I show people the value of being a member there and making use of that, and then ultimately executing on whatever you want to do?
Well, that's something that must bring you internal happiness.
Oh yeah.
Because you're not only giving back to the community by having the interesting videos, the educational videos, but you've created this little community that where people can come and just share advice, because we have influences in our life that we look up to, and like you always talk about your list of there's these 10 people that I super look up to, and will ask for real advice.
Right. And
it sounds like your community kind of has that as well.
Right.
How cool is that?
Well, it's like a lot of times being an entrepreneur isn't, the tough thing about being an entrepreneur isn't your ability to critical think, it's what decisions do I need to be evaluating in that process of critical thinking. Having, being on that WhatsApp chat and saying, guys, I'm thinking about this little Mazak 5-axis machine, and then somebody saying, well, no, actually the Swiss has this opportunity, or though this is from this company, Tsunagi, and being like, getting those data points that let you then learn what you didn't know and better think about it and bounce it off is freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's bonkers, because you can only research so much until you need opinions, until you need actual data and advice from people who've done it or who've done similar research.
One of the guys, Jason, on the NYC CNC forum was asking for some fixturing help, and it was great because he's a smart guy and he's made some fixtures before. So I know he knew this answer even though he couldn't come up with it at the time.
Okay.
And he just wants to do a bunch of second op stuff on parts that have been plasma cut and then powder coated.
Okay.
So he wants to put them back down on to machine one edge and engrave them. So really simple. And so he was like doing what anyone should do, which is like trying to throw out solutions rather than just ask the question of, can you tell me how to do this?
Sure.
He's like, hey, I could do it this way, but I don't feel like any of those are really what I want. And I looked at it with an outside perspective, and I was like, Jason, dude, you're overthinking it. Go back, walk over to that plasma machine, cut a sheet fixture that has cutouts for the engraving and the machine area, 4 cap screws, bolt down 25 of these things at once with plenty of radial, or actually a load, put a piece of gaffer's tape over it so you don't mar up your powder coat. And as soon as he saw it, he's like, oh my God, right, thank you, like, duh.
Yes. It's like the solution's right there, just waiting to be discovered.
All right, I think we're like a few minutes away. Should we call it a successful first
Absolutely, yeah.
first
looking at my timer
video
here at
podcast?
Hour 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever recorded this long.
Yeah.
So normally the podcast, if you've stayed along this long, 45 minutes typically. Usually by 50 minutes, we got people driving around the parking lots waiting for us to finish up. But yeah, no, this was awesome.
Awesome, dude.
Very cool.
Well, have a good day.
Yeah, we're gonna have an awesome day. I hope you guys have a good day.
It is also weird for us because it's like when you know somebody so well, but you know, we've hung out together six different unique trips or something, or 8 trips or something. Not
Yeah.
a relatively small number of times relative to how often we speak.
Right.
So it's awkward. It's fun to be together, but it's one of those like IRL things.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
this is
Well, it's
very-
kind of funny sitting side by side because you're in my head like when we do the podcast.
Right.
Yet I can look over at you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
All right.
cool. Take care, folks.
Okay,
We'll see you.
Thanks for watching. Bye.